In today's video, I'm going to show you how I made this wide leg corporate pants. Starting here with my fabric, I folded into two. So the width is my thigh measurement divided by 2 plus extra 1 inch of allowance. Then I went ahead to mark the length that I'm working with. My length is 42 inches and I added extra 2 inches for allowance. So I'm marking 44 inches here as you can see. Using my ruler, I went ahead to connect the point into a straight line. Next up from the waist again, I went back down to mark the actual length, which is 42. So the first line we marked was 44 inches, so now I'm marking 42, which is the actual length that I'm working with. Notice that I didn't leave out any inches at the top. I marked exactly the 42 inches as you can see. Next, I am marking my hip length, which is 9 inches, and then my crotch, which is 12 inches. I got these 12 inches from dividing my hip measurement by 4. So I mark the same thing on this other side, and then I'm using my ruler to connect the both points into straight lines. So next, I went on to mark my knee length. So from my waist to knee is 22 inches. I marked that, and I'm going to connect that into a straight line also. So I have my hip line, my crotch line, my knee line, and then the length of my pant. So on this crotch line now, I marked my hip measurement divided by 4 plus extra 2 inches. The same thing on the hip line, hip measurement divided by 4 plus extra 2. I did the same thing on the waist, and then I'm going to connect that into a straight line as you can see. Next now I went ahead to make a curve with the remaining allowance there. I went ahead to make a curve, that's the crotch curve. Next now on that hip line at the top, I measured my waist measurement divided by 4 plus extra 1 inch and I marked. If you love to add that, you can add extra 2 inches. I'm not adding that to mine, so I added extra 1 inch and then I connected that to the hip line in a slant like so. On the knee point, I came in by ½ inch, and on the length of the pants, I also came in by ½ inch. You can do 1 inch if you don't want it so wide, but I did ½ inch, so I'm connecting that back to the thigh line and then all the way down like so. Next now, I measured the crotch line all the way through. I got the middle by folding my tape and then I marked that midpoint. I'm going to mark the midpoint all the way to the end, to the hem of the pants. Next now I made a line like so. After that I'm going to measure from the ½ inch I came in by to the middle. Whatever I have there, I'll transfer it to the opposite side. So whatever I have from that ½ inch into the middle, I place my tape again from the middle and mark it on the other side. I'm going to connect this point now back to the crotch line. After that, I am going to extend the flap, the fly. I'm going to extend by 1.5 inches. This will serve as our fly piece for when adding the zipper later on. So I made a curve like so, and I'm going to cut that out as you can see. So we're almost done with the front piece. So this is it for the front part of these trousers. Next, I'm going to fold another piece of fabric to cut out the back piece. I also notched the center piece, the part where the actual center piece is, center point of the front is. So placing my fabric on this new fabric that I folded, I make sure I have 2.5 inches on the crotch extension, and then I am marking 2 inches at the top, like so. Next, now I came in by 1.5 inches. So that line, that's where my front piece starts. Ignore the fly extension. So whatever measurement I have there, I'm going to measure it from that 1.5 inches I came in by and mark the same exact measurement on the side. Then I went up by 2 inches at that point, and then I connected it back to the side where I got my waist measurement. After that, we are going to extend this hip line, then extend the crotch. Already we have 2.5 inches at that point, which is exactly what we need for the crotch extension for the back. So on this side, I marked 1 inch. The hip line, I marked 1 inch out. On the crotch line, I also marked 1 inch out. I connected that to the waist. On the knee line also, I am going to add 1 inch. On the hem line also, I will add 1 inch. I will connect all these points together using my ruler. Next, now on this other side, I added extra 1 inch on the hem line, and then another 1 inch on the knee line also, and then we are going to connect all the way like so. Now I'm going to go back and blend that knee point so that it's not so sharp. Just make a smooth blend like so. And next, now it's time to cut. Oh, one more thing, I'm going to connect these lines like so to complete the back crotch. Okay, so it's now time to cut. So next it's time to cut out the pocket. So my fabric here is folded into two. It's 13 inches on fold, and then for the length it's also 13 inches. I'm cutting out the excess. So we have 13 inches on fold and then 13 inches length. I went ahead to fold it again, and then I placed my front piece on top of it. So the side seam of my front is sitting on the pocket piece like so. Next, I'm going to trim off the pocket side so that it's the same as the front pant leg. Next, now after trimming, I am going to open the pocket piece like so. Then place back the front piece on it, making sure that they are equal because they are now the same shape, so they should align. After that, on the waistline, I will come in by 2 inches. Then I will measure 7 inches down, and on that 7 inches point, I'll come in by quarter of an inch, like less than quarter of an inch. Then connect back to the 2 inches at the top like so. So we're going to cut this out. Next, now I'm going to mark the wrong side of these pocket pieces, and then I will take out one of the front pieces and I'll add interfacing to the pocket side on the wrong side of the pants. So I'm just ironing soft gum stay on this part. You can use the medium one. I mean, the harder the gum stay, the more structure the pocket is going to have. This is so that it doesn't stretch while you're sewing, because this is a soft crepe fabric, it can stretch. And then you have your pocket wider than it should, and then it will not even relax when you wear it on. So I did the same on the second pocket piece as well. Now for the crotch side, this piece of fabric now, the main part, that's the right side, is facing me, and this is my left hand. So I'm going to reduce that crotches, that fly extension by 1 inch. So I just mark 1 inch at the top and just tear it out. We're not taking out the whole thing. The center point where we notched is still there. So this is what we have. We have something like this. It's still, there's still an extension, but not up to that 1.5 inches. Now for the second piece, we are going to also iron interfacing on the wrong side. After trimming off the excess, we are going to now go attach the pocket. So this is the right side of the front leg, one of the front legs. We are going to place the right side of the pocket over it, like so. I'm using my pins to hold this in place for now. And then we will take this to the sewing machine and go sew, using about ½ inch like so all the way. We'll do the same thing for the second leg, exactly the same thing. So after sewing the pockets, this is it. We are going to iron. So you can actually take this back and top stitch, but I don't want any seams, any threads showing on the outside of this pants. So there's no top stitching of any kind anywhere. So I'm going to notch that small part where we did that L shape, and then we will fold it back to the wrong side like so and iron it very smoothly. So at this point, if you don't mind any sewing or any thread on the outer part, you can take this pocket back to the sewing machine and make a tiny stitch straight down on the at the edge. But I don't want that, so I'm just going to leave it the way that it is. So I'm ironing it so that everything is smooth. Next, now I folded the pocket back into two like so. We are going to go close the pocket part, the pocket bag on the lower part. So this part here, we're going to go sew it close. After which I will use my pins to hold it so that it stays in place for the meantime. I will also pin the upper part so that it does not shift while we continue with our sewing. And then I will repeat the same thing for the second front pocket. Next, now I am placing the two front pieces on top of each other, right sides together like so, and then I will come up by ½ inch from that hip line, and I will go and sew the crotch using ½ inch all the way to that point. So this is it. After sewing, we are going to open it up so that it's relaxed like this. This is where the stitch stopped. Make sure you open it completely at that point, and then allow the upper part to just relax the way that it feels comfortable, and then use iron to iron it so that you get a crease. That crease is going to guide us moving forward. So after this is it, that crease is not on the center, it's not on the center point, it's overlapping a bit. But if you place this in such a way that it is relaxed, you will see that it naturally falls where it should fall. So I'm placing my zipper now, the right side of the zip facing the right side of the main fabric, that part that will reduce the extension. That's the part that the zip is sewing on. You are going to go ahead, sew the zip like so, and then open it up, push the seam allowances under the fabric, and then go back and top stitch. After top stitching, we are going to place it back right size, place it back like together, and watch how it falls, and then turn it out, making sure nothing is rumpled, and then sew the zip again on the opposite fly extension. I don't know if I am making sense, but if you place your pieces together at the waist part, you can see clearly where the zip naturally just falls, and then sew it at that point. After sewing the zip, this is what it looks like. This is what it looks like. Nothing is rumpled. The waistline is sitting relaxed. That's how it should be. And you see. So next, now we're going to go sew that curved line on the crotch. So I just used my armhole curve to draw it, but I didn't like the shape, so I went ahead with my hand to adjust the curve again. So I'm going to go now and sew. I just pin the top so that everything sits in place. I go sew following that curve all the way like so, and then I will get another piece of fabric now and sew it on this other tiny piece on the seam allowances of the first one. So I just get a fabric 4 inches wide, I'll fold it into two and close the bottom part like so, turn it back to the right side, and then I will place it over this fly. This is the wrong side, so we're sewing it to the shorter part of the fly only on the seam allowances. We are holding the seam allowance to sew to this new piece that we are adding. So make sure you're sewing only the seam allowances, don't sew on the trouser piece. Nothing should show on the right side. So after sewing, you will have something like this. You also go ahead and join the two fly pieces together on the lower part in a slant like so. So hold the first fly piece that was curved and this extra extension, and then sew in a slant on the lower part. So this is what we'll have on the wrong side. This didn't sew properly, so I'm going to go back and redo it. But this is it. The lower part, they attach together on the lower part like so, and then this extra piece is sewn only on the seam allowance. So I'll go back and redo that, and then we can continue. After that, this is it. I am going to place the back piece, the back trouser leg on the front side seam like so. We are going to go sew the back to the side seam and then sew it on the inside as well. So I'll just undo a bit of the front crotch so that I have some space to sew the back leg to that crotch part. The same thing for the other back leg. I'll place it on this other side, go sew it using 1/2 inch and sew the inseam also. After that, this is what we have. So I'm going to put one leg inside another. So I'll put my hand now, bring it back out into the right side, then chuck it into the second leg like so. That way we have one long crotch from front to back. So we're going to go back now and sew that crotch, making sure that that seam in the middle, that inseam is matching. So I'll go back and sew that, after which we have this. Then I'm going to bring it back out and then turn it to the right side. This is what our pants is looking like. So the next step is to attach the waistband, to cut the waistband rather. So I'm going to open up the zip. Then we're going to measure this waist all the way around, starting from the fly extension all the way back to the other part. So I measured this like 3 times to be sure that I'm getting the accurate figure. After which I have my fabric here on fold. That measurement I got from measuring the waist, I divided it by 2, and then that is the measurement I used to fold the fabric. I added extra ½ inch after dividing by 2. So I'm marking 3 inches as the height of the band. The first line I drew is just the guide, that's my starting point. So 3 inches for the height, and then I got the middle of this piece again and I made a mark all the way down. Then on this open side I went up by 1½ inch, and then on the lower line I also went up by 1½ inch, and then I connected back to the midpoint like so. So this is it now. At the upper part on this open end again, I came in by 1 inch, and then I connected back to the lower part in a slant. Next I went ahead to cut. So this is one piece of the waistband. We're going to cut another piece. We need 2 of this. So I'll place this on my fabric again and cut the second piece. So after cutting, I went ahead to notch the midpoint. That's for the upper part. And then I went ahead to iron medium gum stay on one part of the waistband. After that, I placed the 2 right sides together, and I am going to go sew using ½ inch on this corner all the way across the top, and then the other corner as well. After that, I notched the corners, and then I turned it to the right side and I gave it a good press. After ironing, it's time to attach this to the waist. So I placed it, the part that has gum stay, I placed it to the right side of the trousers. I'm going to go sew it all the way around like so, all the way to this other end. After that, this is what we have. So I'm going to push the seam allowances up like so, and then fold the other raw edge over it. Now we are working from the wrong side. So I'm going to pin this in place. I'm going to iron and then pin, or pin and then iron, just pushing the seam allowances up and then folding the raw edges over it like so, all the way to this other side. So like I said before, I don't want any seams showing on the outside of this, any sewing or any threads showing on the outside of this pants. So I'm going to use needle and thread to tack the inside of this waistband. You can also use hemming gum, but I tacked mine with needle and thread. After that, I folded my trousers this way such that the side seam is in the middle. I'm going to measure that all the way till I get to where I can get 42 inches. When I get to 42 inches, which is my actual length, I will measure what I have left and then use that to hem the pants. For me, I had extra 3 inches, so I'm going to measure 3 inches and then fold in from that point. So I went ahead to fold this, and I also used hemming gum to glue to hem the lower part, hold them in place. I did the same for the second leg, and then the next thing would be to add your button or hook and eye, and this pant is ready. So this is what we have here so far. This is the hem after the hemming gum has been applied. Next now is time to iron. As I was about to do that, my light went off. NEPA did their thing, so I couldn't iron it properly as I would have wanted. So please ignore the rumpleness on this pant, but this is the finished look. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section below. Also, like the video if you learned anything, share with your friends that might need it, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I will see you all in my next video. Bye.